What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Brutal Planet Comics. I'm your host, Dre, the Brute Daniel. So, welcome to another episode of the Indie Corner, where I sit down with everybody from the independent community, writers, artists, directors, producers. Doesn't matter if you're in the game, I want to talk to you. So, today we have a pretty solid guest. He is the creator and owner of E4 Comics. Give it up, everybody, for Jerry Chatelain.
What's up, everybody? How you doing?
What is going on, my friend? How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for having me on this wonderful show, man. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to have you. Before we jump into all your fantastic works and all of what's happening, I want to thank you so very much for first and foremost making the time to come on out here and talk to me.
Thank you so much for having me again, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we get into all the cool stuff that you're cooking up over there at E4 Comics, let's get to know you a little bit. Who you are, where you come from, how do we get here?
Okay, my name is Jerry Chatelain. Like you said, I'm the owner of E4 COMICS. I am the creator and writer of the comic book called The Elements, as you can see behind me. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York.
Nice.
Currently live in Long Island. I'm an EMT for New York City. So I deal with a lot of craziness on a regular basis. Creating comics is pretty much my calm at home.
I hear that. I hear that. EMT. So how long you been doing the firefighter bit?
About 12 years now.
Oh wow. Oh,
Yeah,
that's vet status.
yeah, exactly. That's seniority right there.
Wow, wow, wow. So God knows all the crazy things you done seen on the job.
Yeah, especially in New York City, especially with COVID passing and everything. So it's been a hectic 3 years, but we're finally getting out of that storm. So
That's good. That's good. I'm
yeah,
glad that that aspect of your job is coming
yeah.
down a bit. I couldn't imagine being an EMT. Like me and my wife sometimes watch oh man, I forgot the name of the show. They're in New Orleans and they're doing
Hmm.
the EMT joint.
Yep.
And all the crazy stuff that's happening. I'm just like, yo, y'all can
You
hold
know,
on to that.
I always say that to myself too. Like when I first got on the job, I remember saying to myself, "Can I handle this? Like, am I the type of person that really want to do this?" But I gotta say, like, when you're built for something like this, you're like two personalities. So like when it's time to spring into action, you can kind of say like my id takes over.
Mm,
Like a different personality takes over,
got you.
and I go into work, and then after that's over, the original me come back.
I understand.
So
I understand. I can only imagine you have to turn something in your brain on to
hmm
be able to deal with that type of mass of humanity.
exactly.
So yeah, I can understand that. I can understand that. So you're born and raised in New York,
hmm
pretty much. So while growing up, were you exposed? Like, so how'd you end up? Did you end up becoming a fan of like the comics industries and cartoons? Like, how did you end up getting into the fandom of it?
Yeah, I'm a big kid at heart. I'm 37. I call myself 11 teen when my kids ask me my age. I'm a big kid at heart. I grew up watching, all the classics, Thundercats, Ninja Turtles, Looney Tunes, you name it. Um, Comics weren't too much in my history growing up because, we just weren't exposed to it much,
Hmm.
except like when I went to my cousin's house and
Okay.
he would show me different random comic books and I'd read through them while I'm over there and everything. And, I saw some exciting issues back there. Like I remember reading Batman versus Spawn, Batman
Oh,
versus Hulk, like reading,
crossovers.
yeah, all these different like comic things and everything.
Oh.
So definitely had a big part in what we're doing today.
Oh.
But I
Okay.
guess the biggest influence to us creating E4 Comics was anime.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because I remember being in my young teens, waking up early, like maybe around 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was saying to myself, "What's on TV 5 o'clock in the morning?"
Yeah.
And I remember turning on the TV, And this is why this anime is always going to be my number one. It may not be the best,
Okay.
but it's always going to be my number one because it brought me into the game of anime. Was DBZ.
Oh,
Like I
yeah.
remember turning on the TV and watching Goku and Piccolo fight Raditz, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, this is nothing that I've seen before in my life.
Mm,
Like, what is this? My first introduction into anime. Brought it to my other friends, and they started watching it, and it was just like an amazing experience ever since. And since then, I started branching out into other animes like Techno Man.
okay.
Um, what's that thing called? Crying Freeman,
Okay. Hmm.
Ninja Scrolls. Just started watching whatever it was that I can watch growing up. Ronin Warriors,
Oh,
like
yeah. Remember
yeah,
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, but that's cool. That's cool. Like I've always been interested in how everybody gets exposed to the geekdom in general.
Mhm.
Everybody always has a different origin story, so that's why I'm always interested in. As a writer and creator myself, I'm like, how did you get here? You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
exactly.
So because even like as me, my story, I grew up. I'm in my 30s. We're in the same generation. Um,
Mhm.
I grew up the exact same way. Cartoons and all that great stuff. X-Men animated series, Batman animated series,
Mhm.
all that stuff.
Yep.
Um, but me, I was pretty much the moment I was born, I had a comic book in my hand, and
Mm.
it was like part of me off the jump. So I always was reading comics and uh, getting into full on fandom as a very very young age. Like you, I was exposed to anime in the '90s,
Mhm.
um, as most of us in the states were, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Exposed in the '90s, and yeah, I was a fan of Dragon Ball.
Mhm.
I was a fan of Voltron.
Yep.
Um, you know, my goodness, now it's slipping right out. Sailor Moon, yeah.
Sailor Moon.
Sailor
Yep.
Moon. All the Gundam Wing, all that Toonami block at as
Mhm.
you say in 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
That helped. That definitely helped me expand my reach into different kinds of stories.
Mm.
For sure. And like you, I'm a huge fan of Dragon Ball growing up. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like you said, it's not the best per se when it comes to storytelling, but when it comes to uh, getting somebody involved or growing fans,
Mhm.
absolutely. I don't think there's one better that didn't grab, especially the American audiences,
Yeah.
more than Dragon Ball did, and even to this day, still.
Yeah. You're right.
Like even if you never
100%.
watched the show, you can put a character like my old man never watched a second of it, but he knows who Goku is.
Yeah, it's crazy how that works, right? You ever watch Dragon Ball Z? No, you
Nope.
know who Goku is?
Yep.
Hell yeah, I know Goku.
Yeah.
What?
Exactly. It's like that. It's like those type of shows. Like even like me, I used to watch. I mean, well, I played the games before I watched them, but like when Pokemon became a cartoon.
Hmm.
But before that, I played the games. I've always loved games and all that stuff like that. Same thing.
Yep.
You can show Pikachu anywhere.
Anywhere.
It don't matter if you never seen a Pokeball before. You know Pikachu.
Pikachu, yep.
And it's like, like no, and a lot of the anime and characters like that literally transcended fandom into
Yeah.
mainstream and stuff like that. So yeah, I concur, my friend. I concur. I agree with you on that. All right, so we got your fandom down pack. So how do we go from just being a fan of anime and cartoons and stuff like that? How did that transition into getting into the comic industry?
So, like I said, when we started getting influenced by anime and other, anime shows, we decided growing up that I've always been a writer. I've
Okay.
always liked writing, like from poetry, stories, anything. I always like writing. And growing up, there's always been me. I was also adopted at a point in time in my life as well. So it's
Oh,
always been me, my adopted brother, my cousin, and our best friend. It's always been us four, which is basically why there's four characters within my story. They're kind
oh,
of based on us. growing up,
Wow.
our personalities. So as we were growing up, I was kind of saying to ourselves, yo, we should create a story about us. And it was like, yeah, what do you have in mind? I was like, I don't know, maybe something about using elements and stuff to go with our personalities and everything. So I was like, I want to be Fire because I've always been a big Fire fan. Like my favorite Marvel character is the Human Torch.
I'll do it.
Second is Gambit. Well, it's always been the Human Torch. Anybody that had anything to do with fire, I've always been drawn to. So I was like, I'm Fire. And then they were like, all right, cool. My cousin Corey was like, you know what? I'll be Shock Electricity, since he was like always considered the fastest in the group. My brother became Sky, and our closest friend became Hydro. So it's kind of like, we discussed their personalities, what we like to see them do in the stories and everything. So originally creating the elements, we wanted it to be an anime.
Okay.
But if anybody knows, animation is insanely costly. So
yes, it is.
That was not happening anytime soon. So, we kind of sat back and was like, you know what, maybe it might be better for us to just create a comic book. So it was now taking a story that was written to be an anime and revising it to be a comic book. And that was, like pretty difficult process to do because, like I said, I've read comics in my life, but I wasn't so, like entailed in detail to what it was. So having to do that, I had to teach myself the whole process of writing a comic book, which I'm still learning to this day. So that led us to, sitting down and writing, where do we want to start? So our first comic book got released 2016. We called it The Elements, now titled Issue 0, which was this one.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Nice. I love the color.
Thank you.
Cover. English. Yeah. Cover is really dope. I like that.
Thank you so much, man. So at first, when we had the story, we were like, okay, it's great. We got the story. We need an artist. So we found out one of our friends was an artist. So he was the first person to create the characters for us, bring all 4 brothers to life. He's still with us today. His name is Dennis. He's our concept artist. So whenever it is that we want to come up with a new character, I go straight to him, give him my ideas. He sketches them out. Then he told me about Facebook groups where, people are looking for artwork, writers, etc. So we ended up finding an artist that, his specialty was kind of, anime style art.
Gotcha.
Because that's exactly what we were looking for. So he was able to take my concept artwork and create that, what we showed you, and turn the characters into that anime style looking characters. So from there, we started creating issue 0. So we decided that, where do we want to start with issue 0? We decided that we wanted to try our best to bring in more attention to people reading it and looking at it and be like, wow, this is amazing. What's going on? What's happening? What's the story? So I would say issue 0 is like the Frieza saga in Dragon Ball Z.
Okay.
The best analogy.
Okay.
So once people start reading that and getting drawn to what's happening, we bring it back to where we created issue 1 called The Elements Awakening. Right?
Okay.
So now this is the beginning of when the brothers were in the orphanage.
Okay.
And where the story would basically begin in The Awakening.
Interesting. So I'm gonna go on a limb. I'm gonna pick your brain there for a second there, Jerry. But I'm gonna go on a limb and say you created the label E4COMICS. Is that to represent the 4 of you?
It is. Basically, part of it is to represent the 4 of us, but it also has a meaning to it. So it's kind of like we decided to ourselves that when you're creating something, we always feel like if you find the 4 key elements in creating something and you stick to those elements, you can't be stopped. Like you continue to speed over. So here's a passage that we kind of go by. Like we use this on all our Kickstarters.
Okay.
And it goes, there are many things in life that may not seem achievable, but creating these comics have shown us the only things that are unachievable are the things you tell yourself is unachievable. With the E4 way, right mindset, right people, right time, and right passion, nothing can stop you from succeeding. Words cannot express how grateful we are for all your support. So we always feel that once you find those 4 elements within whatever it is you want to do, whatever it is you want to create, you follow those things and you're going to get to where you want to get to.
That is an interesting proverb.
Yeah,
for sure. Absolutely. That's an interesting proverb. 4, usually in certain cultures, 3 equals completion, like a triangle or whatever.
Yep.
But the fact that you've applied it not only to your creativity and your work, but also in your life in general. Like I like squares. That's I like squares. I'm not really a triangle guy. I'm a square guy. I like squares because
I feel you.
because squares are even.
Mm-hmm.
Squares are even, and they are the same no matter how you spin them.
Yep.
And I believe there's a form of completion when it comes to squares.
Mm-hmm.
And you need 4 corners to make a square. And I think that's really cool. The fact that not only have you implemented in your writing and implemented in your life, but at the same time, you found a way to bring it to life. And that's very interesting. Yeah, that's really cool.
Thank you.
Let me pick your brain for a hot second here. When you're talking about when you went back, rewind, touch. When you're talking about that issue 0 is your Frieza saga. Personally, I think the Frieza saga is some of the greatest anime ever put on the television. That's just my personal opinion. I feel the show went downhill from there. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. I believe that saga, like if you want to encompass it as the Namekian saga altogether. Like if you go from like when they're hunting Dragon Balls, the Captain Ginyu, all that great stuff, and then to the big bad and Frieza taking on Zarbon and all them other great, all that stuff. Like if you encompass all of that, I think that is some of the greatest anime ever put on television and some of the greatest television I'd ever seen. Things were completed, things felt satisfied. Saiyan race gets its revenge on Frieza. Vegeta has character growth. All these things are happening in this one saga, which really puts a neat little bow on things. So with that in mind, when you wrote issue 0 back in 2016, were you intending at the time for it to be a standalone?
Yes, because like I said, this is our first comic book. Mm-hmm. Our first idea was to physically, like visually draw people in, because we can create a comic book, which we did, that starts from the beginning. Absolutely. But we just kind of wanted to give people an idea of where this comic was going, before starting from the beginning. So now eventually from where issue 1 is, we will eventually get back to where issue 0 left off.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like if you remember watching Dragon Ball Z back then, they get to the peak of something, then they started all over from episode 1 again.
Okay. All right. I see where things are going. So for the sake of using the Dragon Ball analogy, because it's easy. So issue 0 is Frieza Saga, which technically ended up being the middle of the story. Mm-hmm. Technically.
Yep.
So issue 1 through, let's just say 5 for the sake of numbers' sake. So issue 1 through 5 would be like the Saiyan Saga to Garlic Jr. You know what I mean? Like I kind of into that until we get to the meat and potatoes.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay. See, I can follow that. See, that's simple for me. That's simple for me to follow. Okay. No, that makes sense to me. So you go into, so it acts as a prequel more or less.
Hmm.
Acts as a prequel more or less to the main story, the apex, until we
Hmm.
get to the apex. Okay, that makes sense. So so this is going to be an ongoing series. I'm going to assume.
Yeah.
So how many issues have you produced so far, Jerry?
Right now, I currently have issue 2, which would technically be 3.
Okay.
But issue 0 is no longer in print. That's why I don't add it into the numbers sequence no
Oh.
more.
Okay.
So right now we have issue 2 currently running on Kickstarter right now as we speak.
Okay.
So we have issue 1, which is the awakening, the elements awakening, and then now we have the elements burden of truth on
Okay.
Kickstarter now.
Okay. 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 So I might be getting ahead of myself. But how long do you think this saga is going to extend? As far as, like, how many issues do you think this story arc in particular is going to stretch?
I'm going to be quite honest with you, no idea. None. Because I'll even tell you this, to get to even where issue 0 left off,
Mm-hmm.
we still have so right after the burden of truth,
Mm-hmm.
there's 3 more comics,
Okay.
which is going to be called Dice's Saga, which is going to be 3 parts. Saga part 1, 2, and 3.
Got it.
And that's going to end that cycle, and then eventually we're going to continue on with the story from there, which will hopefully eventually reach to where issue 0 took place.
Mm.
So as it goes, we're going to be creating as much as possible as long as people read them and allow us to create. Yes, we do have an ending. We know how we want it to end. So it's just all about filling in the gaps and getting to that part, because there's so much information that we want to add. And like I said, writing from animation to comic is it's challenging because let's take, for example, let's jump animes. You ever watch Naruto?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Naruto. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. One of my biggest things that we love so much about anime is character development.
Yes, absolutely.
Watching, and forgive me if I'm spoiling anything for anybody out there that hasn't watched Naruto yet. Watching Naruto from episode 1, when the villagers didn't like him, they couldn't stand him. He only was able to do the shadow clone jutsu or the sexy jutsu. That was like his only thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the writers allowed him to use those abilities, like how smart he was, using just those common abilities was amazing, and it just showed you how crafty that kid is. Seeing that hated person grow to what we see now, to the Hokage, to being beloved by everybody in that village, is something special to us.
Absolutely.
Very special. I mean, he went from doing freaking shadow clones, and we already knew something special with him, to, if you remember the war they fought when he had the sage and the nine tails coming out, he was running around giving people chakras. Like, he'll go, here's some chakra, like Oprah, just you get chakra, you get chakra. Like, how powerful he became from that to that. Is something we really want to try and capture within our story.
And that makes a lot of sense to me. I've always been a fan of. I'm a big character development guy myself. That's my bread and butter. Like, in my writings, I like the idea of a character going from nothing to something, or something to nothing. And I think that's, for me, I think that is the greatest form of storytelling. Because when it comes to, like, a hero's journey or a villain's journey or whatever the case may be, for us to follow where they are to where they've come from, we as the audience imprint ourselves onto said character. That's why characters like Naruto or Goku, to a certain extent, if you were like in the Dragon Ball era and watched him grow as a kid into an adult or whatever the case may be, you imprint on these characters. You see yourself as them. Because are you going to be able to shoot fireballs from your hand. Of course not. I mean, that'd be awesome. But no, of course not. But we all have our own character journey. And to see that, hey, this character went from only having one ability and everybody hates him to the fact that he is now the man. Mm-hmm. We can see ourselves in like, hey, I remember when I started off as X. And now throughout my journey in my life, I am now Y and Z. So absolutely, I can see why you would be drawn to that type of character-based storytelling. Makes a whole lot of sense to me. Well done, Jerry. Absolutely.
Thank you. So now creating that in a comic sense is obviously, it's difficult. It's a lot more difficult than, putting it on screen and showing it off. So
of course, like me, I've dabbled in all different types of writing like yourself. I wasn't that. I mean, I guess I used to write rap, but that I don't really consider that. But I used to write certain musics. I used to write regular novels. I used to write all these other different things. When I decided to take my comic game seriously, finally, I wrote my comics as screenplays. I wrote them as screenplays, so it can still, fall in seamlessly. In the event of like, if I wanted to put it on the silver screen or whatever. I think that's, for me, it's always been very effective to write them that way, because of all the panel descriptions and all that other stage directions that you have to actually put inside, and bams and wows and pows and whatever else you got cooking up in there. It's a whole lot easier to do it that way. But like you said, it is a challenge in of itself to do so. But that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I definitely write the same way because I'm not an artist. So when I relay the information to my artist, it has to be in that style.
Specific.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let me tell you something funny, that it'd be hilarious if you saw a lot of the pictures I would take just to show like the artist the movement or the scene that I want my characters to be in. Like, it's a lot of hilarious things that we gotta do, but just to get things correct, we gotta do what we gotta do.
Believe me. Look, like when I was describing, I remember I was writing this one of my main series years ago, and I was like, okay, look, here is like, I'm from Washington D.C. That's where I'm from. I'm Washington D.C. So my main story takes place there. So I know that my artist has no idea what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Not in the foggiest clue.
Yep.
So my drawing are stick figures. So now look, if you want some parallelograms, I got you.
Facts, bro.
But outside of that, no. So I was like, look, I'm gonna Google some pictures, and I'm gonna send you how these landscapes look, and then I would take the pictures, and then on like Paint or whatever other editing software I had, I would draw stick figures.
Yep.
on the canvas. And so I said, this is the placement that I'm talking about. I know, like, because some artists don't really get stage directions that well, or whatever the case may be. I said, screw it. I don't need to leave nothing to guesswork. All right, here's stick figure number 1. All right, this is where he is. This is what he's going to be doing. So look, bro, I feel the pain. Make no mistake. Make no mistake. I'd rather make a flip book.
Yeah, there you go.
But that's good. That's good. So, Jerry, where can we get all the work that you guys at E4COMICS is cooking up?
We have a website at www.e4comics.com, where we have merch, issue 1 and other, items you can purchase. We're on Instagram, E4Comics. We're on Facebook, E4Comics. We're on Twitter. We're on TikTok. We're trying to be on every social media that we could possibly be on, but working all those social media is like a second job on itself. Like,
that's the truth.
All this algorithm stuff and everything's just like,
tell me about it. Whatever the algorithm is, I have not figured it out.
Yeah, man. Like, I've watched so many YouTube videos on trying to understand it and figure it out. And every few months it changes. So you got to change the way you're doing things. And, Yeah, it's exhausting.
It's a full-blown gorilla panic nightmare. That's
yep.
I mean, it's a nightmare, and I hate it so much. Anyway, I could talk about that for about 6 days straight. But anyway, Jerry, I would like to thank you so very much for making the time to come and talk about all your great work at E4COMICS. You guys are doing, as I love to say on this show, the Lord's work. You guys are getting it done. From the bottom of my heart, I really want to sincerely thank you for making the time.
Thank you for having me on your show, man. Thank you for making the time. I had a blast, man. Got to do this again soon.
Absolutely. This would not be the last time we speak, my friend. So anybody, that is Jerry Chatelain. I got it right. Yeah. Follow him on his dope social media platforms and check out all his work at E4COMICS. I will leave it in the description section below. This has been the Indie Corner, and you already know who I am. I'm Trey the Brute Daniels. Follow me on all my dope social media platforms that I'll put right under my face. It's not there right now, but they will be. At the Brute00 on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and if I feel like being silly, on TikTok. You all have been awesome, and I will catch you all next time. Also, if you want to support my channel, check out spinwiz.com or download the Spinwiz app and check out my comic series, Trouble. It was written with a lot of love, and it was definitely my favorite comic series to write. I've also written it in English and in Spanish, so whatever floats your boat, I got it for you. Thanks again, and check it out.